on your website, I noticed that you don't have big ambitions. So you have only 3 things listed on your website. One is you want to cure cancer. The other one is that you want to end poverty. And the third one is you want to disrupt Hollywood. How's it going?
Well, in my defense, Steve Jobs says the crazy ones that believe they can change the world are the only ones that do.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
And so I've had people tell me, like, all right, maybe cancer, probably not poverty, but forget about Hollywood. You'll never, you're absolutely crazy and you're up in the night. And it was the first one we accomplished, so it makes me think the other 2 might be possible.
Well, how did you come up with these 3?
They were informed by our family experiences. Years ago, I was invited by, my mom was born and raised in Mexico, in northern Chihuahua, and my grandfather lived and my great-grandfather lived there. So when our family immigrated to the United States, we ended up in Mexico. And Swedish and Danish farmers. And having spent my summers in Mexico growing up, and then going back to California, seeing the disparity, I learned to hate poverty, and it just eats at me. And I don't know, I have unhealthy empathy. So it just really is one of those things that has hurt my soul. And then we moved to Mexico at the invitation of the Mexican government to create the first venture capital fund in Mexico. And while we were there, my wife was diagnosed with a terminal cancer called multiple myeloma. So that has entered our family thesis. And then Hollywood, we have 6 kids. And you don't want to control your kids, but you also don't want to be monitoring 24/7 what comes into your home. And I felt like we were just under attack. And Hollywood has this insidious way of planting a seed in a dark room. My friend calls it the sacrament of the cinema. And you're there for 2 hours, you put away your phone, and it's like a church environment, except you're being fed an idea, and you're able to sell a narrative.
Yeah.
And I felt that this narrative was being sold for evil, but who's on the other side? Who's going to be a force for good there? And truth, and it just didn't feel like there was a voice.
Yeah.
And so I just, once in a while, after a while, you get frustrated enough, and like, well, if nobody else is going to do it, maybe I'll take a swing at it.
So we'll come back to that, but just I was here in the room till about midnight that night and watched Cabrini.
Sorry about that.
And but I loved the movie.
I noticed you kept getting up to go and getting coffee.
I was thinking that. I think there's a narrative that I don't think is true, that there has to be, I guess, ever so more explicit sexual scenes. There has to be violence in order for movies to do well. I mean, I don't know who sold us that idea. I mean, I watch your movie and I'm thinking that this movie will probably win many, many awards. And it'll probably do extremely well in the box office. So I don't know who's coming up with that narrative, but I think that's the wrong narrative.
I agree. Half of America agrees with you also. There's a middle layer of management in Hollywood that lives in an echo chamber. Mm-hmm. And they make these decisions on what they think. They do testing, and they think what the audience is going to want. You have to be careful who your representative sample is that you're asking. Because we had, after Sound of Freedom crushed it in the box office and broke everybody's expectations, including ours, it did 7 times the outside number as to what we thought it was going to do. Wow. Internally. Every major studio started calling us and asking us if we would distribute their films. And the CEO of Lionsgate shows up, camped in her office for an entire day, and said, I have these films that I don't know how to get to the audience. Can you distribute them for us? And then the same week, the CEO of Sony calls up and asked if we would take some of their films and distribute them. So while they may have films, there's a disconnect between the audience, which I think is most of America, and what Hollywood's making. And everybody knows that inherently, because you see the stuff comes out and you're like, they didn't make that for me, they didn't make that for me. And you're constantly scrolling on Netflix trying to find something that you can accept and watch. And then you settle for something that's like the lesser evil.
On this subject, I recently entered this industry, and I'm definitely learning a lot. But a lot of people have warned me that it's a great way to lose money. And
Restaurants, movies, and racehorses.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and aviation.
Aviation?
And
Okay.
aviation. And 9 out of 10 movies that come out, they lose money. But you have made money on all of your movies. How is that?
We got lucky. I come from a startup world, and where you take a thesis. Like, I've invested in about 150 tech companies over the last 22 decades. And I had an observation that the more money that I gave to the startup before they nailed their customer product market fit, the higher the probability of failure. It was a direct correlation. And if you starve the startup has to go listen to the customer, listen to the audience, they dial it in, and then you pour fuel behind success. So we said, what if, we're crazy, what if we apply that to the movie industry? And there is an inoculation against feedback in the movie industry because this is the art. This is the work of my hands. But we just said, what if we involve the audience? And we applied Clayton Christensen's disruption theory models to Hollywood. And so we basically said, okay, let's go and ask the audience. Let's go take a concept. Let's ask this audience and then ask them what they think about it. And we asked the audience 2 questions. First question is, does this represent light? Yes or no? And second question is, how disappointed would you be if we didn't make this movie? And it's very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed at all, it's not that good. And if it gets 60% or more very disappointed, that's it. It's greenlit. There's no middle management, there's no Hollywood executives. I have zero influence on that. There was a movie called His Only Son that came to us. It was a $250,000 project. And by the way, anybody can submit a movie to our guild. Anybody. You just upload it, and it goes through the process. And there's this project called His Only Son, which cost $250,000 from a first-time movie director. And I saw it, and it was low quality. I said, there's no way we're going to do this. And I tried to kill the project. I yelled, and I screamed, and I went to the management team. This is how much influence I have at my own company. And they say, I'm sorry, Paul, but look at the numbers. It's off the chart. I said, it's wrong. You got the wrong sample. It's impossible. She's whiny. It's just not going to work. And we did 40x the cost of the movie the first weekend in returns.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Yeah. And so I wrote a blog post. I'm dumb. You're smart. You're good looking. I'm ugly. You're handsome. I'm ugly. Anyway, so and I was wrong, and I'm excited to be wrong, and that's not Hollywood. Hollywood has this, and so when people looked at our model, they said the executives should be shaking in their boots because you just fired a whole layer of management in Hollywood that fires the script writer or says we need more sex in this scene, and those people think they're the expert at replacing the crowd and the wisdom of the crowd. So we have a representative sample of 125,000 families throughout the United States that we ask these questions to. And you guys can go to the Angel app, shameless plug, and then you can apply to be a member of the guild, and then you become part of the voice that chooses what gets made. And that's kind of an anti the creators, but we see hundreds of films a month, sometimes as much as 700 films a month come into us that go through this process.
And what percentage do you they don't get enough votes?
Most do not. Yeah, I mean so we're finding those gems that somebody created and giving the people a shot. But you can also take that project. We give you the feedback, what you got rated, what the audience said, give it back to you. And if you want to fix it, bring it back as many times as you want. We have one that's gone through the process 30 times.
Wow.
And it got enough rating, and it's coming out December 1st. I hate the film. Yeah. It's probably going to do great.
That's funny. So, the week before meeting you, I was at TIFF in Toronto, and your name came up, the Angel Studios name came up multiple times. And you guys were not even there, were you?
No.
And that's the amazing part, that you're not even there and you're disrupting Hollywood.
We don't even know what events we're supposed to be going to, right? Nobody calls and invites us and say you're supposed to be here or be there.
Well, they probably don't want you in the industry.
I don't know. I'd like to think they do, but you're probably right. You're probably right. No, we couldn't be more outsiders if we tried.
Yeah.
But it's, we're just basically taking disruption theory, applying it to the Hollywood model, and it works. It's like, you go industry after industry. Disruption theory says you go after the unloved, underserved customer. You serve, as Clayton Christensen talks about, it was a genius, bless his, God rest his soul. You focus on non-consumption.
Yeah.
And so we, the audience, we're not being asked or participating in the model, and you give us a chance and we'll tell you what we think.
Yeah.
We showed one of our movies to the CEO of Trilith Studios, and you may not know the name, but Trilith is the largest movie studio in the US, and they produce all of the Marvel movies.
Yes.
They do the Star Wars projects. It's the most advanced studio. And the CEO, Frank, when he saw what we did, he just said, you're changing Hollywood. And I said, okay, well, what do you think? I mean, what do you think is unique and different? And he started telling us what we've done. He said, we spend a lot of money doing the setup, and the setup is the first 3 to 5 minutes of a movie.
Yeah.
And you get the setup right, and it sets the tone of the movie. And he talks about, he goes, I've trained over 1,000 directors in my career. This guy's a legend. And he said, but you can throw everything out the window because if the audience loves it, that's ground truth. So you can take all of my genius and all of my coaching and throw it out the window. If the audience says they love it, you win. And that's the only thing that really matters at the end of the day. And some people say, I have art for my own reasons and I'm doing it. Well, fine. But if you want your message to get out to a broad audience, and we don't do it for the money, we do it for the maximum exposure of the message. You find the broadest audience possible, and you just ask. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
You ask them before you make it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm pretty sure that, which I'm facing that for every now and then, that when you talk to those in Hollywood and you tell them about what you want to do, they say, no, you can't do that. You got to have marijuana. You got to have this. You got to have that in order for that movie to do well. And I'm like, but the movie industry does not need one more film studio that's going to do the same thing everybody else is doing. What's the purpose then?
Yeah.
So what you guys are doing is really...
It's broken. They can't see it. And people say, well, you're nervous about them copying you. I said, no, I hope actually we make so much money that they all want to copy us because they chase the money.
Yeah.
So if we chase the model at the highest level, this is about shifting culture.
Yeah.
Which is the strategy, by the way. It's not about making money, and it's not about necessarily disrupting Hollywood. It's about shifting culture and putting the narrative back for truth back on track and things that the average American family cares about.
So a term you used, which I loved, I have an office in American Forks, so I go to Provo, Utah quite often, and the term you used was that your movies are Provo Clean. and I love that. I was like, okay, well, that makes it very clear how clean.
I'll tell you where that came from.
Okay, tell me.
So we to create our guild, we created a company called VidAngel. Okay. And VidAngel was front page of all the Hollywood publications for the wrong reason. We were being sued by Disney, Fox, Lucasfilm, so Disney, and Warner. They dragged Warner into this. And the reason Disney was suing us is because we allow you to edit the movies on the fly. So you can sign into your account, give them your Netflix subscription, your Amazon, Hulu, whatever. So all the stuff you have legal access to, and then we create a custom stream of that movie for you, taking out the sex or the violence or the headshots. I can't stand watching headshots. And we create a custom stream, and it turns out the directors are pretty angry that we're touching their art, even though there's a law that says the Family Movie Act, which says we have the legal right to edit what comes into our home. The studios were angry about this, and they sued us, and we lost the biggest copyright lawsuit in U.S. history, $62.4 million, plus $30 million legal fees, so $92.4 million. It was a bad day. And we were shut down. On the day we were shut down, and we had an injunction from the studios, we ended up negotiating it away, and it was a happy ending. That'll make a great movie by itself. But this is how we created our guild. We had people hundreds of thousands of people donating money to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. And we had donors and investors, and that guild, that audience is gold. That's what we carried with us. And then after we negotiated the settlement away, we got the venue moved to Utah in our backyard as opposed to the Ninth Circuit in California's backyard, Disney's backyard. The judge realized that this was a business move because Disney was trying to block all their other competitors from making their content family friendly and opening the audience and competing with Disney. So we ended up creating this this company. We created a separate company. On that day that we got shut down, we created 2 projects. We created Angel Studios on that day, and we created, because the founders committed to me, we'll go create movies after we put lipstick on the Hollywood pig. And then the other thing we created Dry Bar Comedy. And Dry Bar Comedy uses the economics, so it's in the economic self-interest to make the movie, the comedy as broad as possible. So all comedians go to comedy clubs, and comedy clubs are blue, so they'll have a blue act. We created a clean club in Provo. And have you ever been to Provo? You've been to Provo.
I haven't, yeah, of course.
So, you're back in 1950s, you know, clean cut hair and no beards, and it's a little spooky. And then you have a comedy club for Provo college students, and they don't laugh if it's dirty. They don't laugh if you make fun of women. They don't laugh if, of stuff that's not even gross language, but it's mean. Yeah. And so the comedians came back and they said, that's a tough room. They said there's clean, and then there's Provo Clean.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, but what we've been able to do is we've now filmed 650 comedy specials that have had 5 billion views in the last 4 years. And it's become the largest comedy brand in the world. It's called Dry Bar Comedy. Yeah. And so we basically leverage the economics to say, you can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But no comedian wants to die on stage.
Right.
So they're naturally going to clean it up. And then once in a while, when they get a swear word out by accident, they come back and say, I said, damn, would you please take it out? No, we're going to leave it in. We're not going to filter you. Because the audience can actually filter, and the economics of what they get paid is based on the breadth of reach and also on filtering. Oh. So they can make 6 figures on their one comedy special with us, which is more than they make the entire year on the road. And so they have now kind of starting to dial this in. And they get a tape they can take to trade shows, corporate events, cruise ships, college campuses, which is where they make most of their money. And for the first time in their career, they get a clean tape. So now they have a clean show, it's valid, it's a clean tape, and we've been able to elevate comedy and take it globally. I was in Indonesia a few months ago, and this wealthy family office said, I love Dry Bar, but not enough swear words. It's not dirty enough for me. I'm like, all right, sorry.
That's why
there's always Netflix.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, somebody who doesn't mind, the profanity can still watch this. But, somebody who doesn't want to have profanity in their content, they can also say it's a common denominator.
Yeah, you can watch. You can be with your kids in the car and have confidence that you're not going to get surprised.
That's right. All right. So how does your religious views and background, contribute to the work that you do?
It's a great question. I bring my faith with me to everything I do. And the 2 great commandments are love God first, then love your fellow man as yourself. Love God, love your fellow man as yourself. And on these 2 commandments hang all the laws. When we put things in order, it works. And I think a lot of the problems we see in the world is that we misprioritize our loves. We misprioritize the things that we love. And we take this thing that's really important to us, whatever the issue might be, and LGBTQ, and we put it up here above God. Or we take this, I love the planet. I love the planet too. I don't love it more than God, but I love the planet. I think all of the major challenges we face in the world would be solved if each one of us would live our religion. I don't think there's a problem that can't be solved if we truly lived our religion. But we have, inappropriate, misprioritized what we think our religion is about. So it's the fundamental is love, and you get your loves in order, and everything kind of falls into place. So that kind of informs everything that I do.
That's interesting. Someone said, I think it was on the first day of the conference, that if you have Christian, a Muslim, a Baha'i, a Jewish person, and if they're all truly following their religion, you cannot tell which one is which.
I agree.
Because the truth is one, and the essence of them is truly one. I mean, those virtues are timeless, and they belong to all of them.
I have a Muslim friend that lives in Florida, and he was one of the top myeloma researchers in the world. And I called him last week, said, "How you doing?" He said, "It's been very, very hard for me." And he walked me through what he's struggling with right now. He says, "I go and I pray at the different synagogues, and I pray at or mosques. Sorry, I pray at the Sunni mosque, and I realize that we pray exactly the same, except one mosque I go to, you put my head on a rug, and the other put my head on some clay." And he goes, "But it's exactly the same." And as I'm listening to him talk about it, he says, "I care about my brothers 7 doors up and 7 doors down, and my job is to serve them."
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for Jesus to come back. And as he's listening, talking to him, like, "What faith are you again?" And there's so many similarities, and so we can identify the things that we have in common. There's so much more that we have in common than we have at odds with each other.
Absolutely, I fully agree. Well, by the way, I see that questions are coming in, and let me actually just go to one of these. The first question wants to take you back to the beginning. I am curious about your personal journey, and there are multiple questions in one, so let's start with that. How did you get started as an entrepreneur?
A restless soul. Every year since I was a kid, I would create a startup, and I'd either tank it or sell it, literally since I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And my mom had this belief that she would say yes to us unless she absolutely had to say no. And so I grew up in this environment where I got to just kind of explore and go and identify problems and create it. And I'm a daydreamer and a visionary. And once I lock something in my mind, I drive myself crazy because I think it's possible. And so I just did that all the way through, elementary school, high school, college. I had over a dozen companies by the time I was in college or finished college. And then one day somebody asked me, "You seem like a smart kid. You can spend 24 hours a day digging ditches, or you can build rocket ships. Wouldn't it be more fun to go to the moon?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're thinking too small. It's easier to think big. It's easier to raise money. It's easier to attract people. It's the same hours in the day. You just get to spend it having more joy." And I had a water purification service company in Southern California, and I handed the keys to my brother that day. I said, "That's yours. I don't care." I literally quit, handed it over, the truck, everything. And my next company was a software company because I thought, well, why not? Let's go try it. And it failed. Yeah.
Of course.
And I thought, I better go work for somebody because I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
What year was this?
That was late 80s.
Okay.
It was late 80s. And so my first software company, I got off the ground in 89. It was before Windows.
Yes.
And it was a DOS TSR startup, and it was a lot of fun until it wasn't.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, a few rapid-fire questions so we can get through these. One quick question. Thank you for this amazing film and sharing her story. I cried and loved it so much, especially as a female humanitarian focused on assisting the unseen. I would love to know if there was anything in the film that was not true to Cabrini's life story, and if so, why it was altered for the film.
Somebody asked me that question. The film was deeply researched. The film is very, very adheres to her life story. All of the principles in the film, all of the scenes were informed by true events. Was the actual dialogue? I doubt it. But every single scene in that movie was true, and there was history and documentation of each of that. The weakest documentation was the words of the nuns when they lived in her home for weeks as they're writing the script. And the nuns would tell the stories of, that were passed down, and not too long ago, right? She died in the early 1900s, but they were talking about her and the history of that house, and so they're the historians, and so we basically captured those stories And Rod Barr and Alejandro Monteverde, who wrote the film and Alejandro directed it, shared with me that their research, and so they felt they were very faithful to her mission, her story.
It's great. I mean, no movie can be exactly like the true story, particularly when you don't know exactly what the dialogue was.
But all the frameworks of the movie, she was sick. She had tuberculosis, and she was turned down by every order she applied to. She applied to the Pope 12 times and was turned down. They finally just called her in and said, "Listen, no means no." She's, "Because I'm a woman?" Like, oh.
Okay, no.
Like, no. And so, she was a thug.
All right, the guild and the app that you have generates a ton of data, but yet you choose not to monetize that data. Why?
Because we don't care about money. But I mean, it's true. If you optimize for impact as opposed to money, one of the decisions that we actively made early on. You've heard of the game Minecraft.
Yes.
So, Minecraft is the largest multiplayer game in the world, over 500 million users. They give it away for free. But Minecraft is one of the most profitable games in the world too, because they have this loyal 2 to 3% that buy things in the app. Mm-hmm. And so early on, Jeff Harmon had the idea, if we give it away for free, kind of like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, give it away now. We ended up creating a massive audience for impact as opposed to optimizing, and then the money follows the impact and the mission. So most of the models of Angel Studios, you can watch every movie we do for free. Yeah. The founders, Neil and Jeff, couldn't afford going to the theaters as poor kids in Idaho, and so they want to make sure that everybody can see their content, and so you can always go to the website and get a free ticket to any theater. Can it be abused? Yes. Do we care? We don't care. And people are buying tickets for more people to see the movie. Yeah. And because they believe the messages and the movies are so important. Now, what he's probably talking about is the metadata on the back end. Like when you submit movies, or if you go to the other company, VidAngel, we know down to the scene what words people are filtering out in every scene, and you can provide that data back to filmmakers. Unfortunately, filmmakers don't use data to make their films. They make the films that they want to make. So is it possible we can make it available to them? Yes. Would we sell it to them? Probably would never do that. Because we'd love them to have the data so it can inform their decisions.
You probably care how they use that data.
Yeah, we probably do. Yeah, we probably do. But if the goal is a culture shift, then you're playing at a different level, and it's not about trading for dimes. Yeah.
Paul, it's been great meeting you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. You're doing amazing work, and I mean, I absolutely love the work Angel Studios does, and the rest of the work that you're doing for ending poverty and curing cancer. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor to be here.
Think of sharing what you know.